Hello and welcome to the Overlap Rugby podcast. I am Daragh, and to my right, not my left, is Shane.
Yeah, I decided to switch it up.
This is number 35. This is number 35 of Overlap Rugby podcast, and what has happened this week is that November has wrapped up.
Yeah.
We we're going to look back at two of the games in particular that happened last weekend, but in general, what we're going to do this podcast is sort of try and take a big picture look at things, try and ease out of just looking at the week by week, and take a look after this November series, after this Southern Hemisphere season, and where all the teams look under a year now out from the World Cup.
Sure, yeah, and it's a good opportunity. The international window is closed now until the Six Nations, which is going to be a whole other string of talking points when that comes around, but it's important to kind of take stock of what was accomplished and where each team feels, who were the big winners, who were the big losers out of this autumn series, which, as we were saying beforehand, was a bit of a strange one just purely because of where it is compared to the World Cup. We obviously saw things like New Zealand heading out to Japan for tests and stuff, and all kinds of sides are considering that anyway, so it's involving different kind of ways of preparing for the World Cup. It is the main kind of thrust of this autumn. So with that in mind, whereabouts are they? But I suppose we have to talk about one game in particular first, though, before we get into breaking all that down.
Yeah, this is the opening of this podcast. It was going to be, a review of everyone, and we weren't quite sure what we were going to open with when we were thinking about this show last week. But then on Saturday evening, something that passed us by that we didn't see coming, that perhaps maybe if we'd been paying a bit more attention to Fiji, the possibility. Certainly John McKee, their coach, was making the point that it was possible, and they went and they beat France by 21 points to 14 in Paris, and
amazing result.
And there was no fluke to it. It was a superb performance from a very talented and balanced looking team,
and for the first time in a long time looking well drilled, certainly well drilled outside of a World Cup cycle, which is encouraging to see. Well, not outside of an actual World Cup, they're definitely in the World Cup cycle, but it's positive to see such a stellar defensive display really as well, because you normally associate with Fiji would score a few tries, leak a few tries, kind of ultimately be a bit frail at the end and come apart at the seams a lot of the time. But that very, very demonstrably didn't happen, particularly those last 20 minutes. It was some sterling defence, and it was just like their physicality, which we all sure, France. The point was being made that a lot of the top couture's teams have an obligatory massive classy Fijian in their ranks to try and bring some of that magic, and it's when you put all of them on the team together, they make a bloody good team, and a bloody strong team.
Organisation is the key to what and coaching. Just evidently coaching. They're an evidently coached team now, but on the pitch, in terms of their personnel, it's a who's who of really, really classy footballers and top athletes as well.
This is it,
and big guys. They're not shirking out of the contact. They're very used now at this stage to playing professional rugby. Average age of the squad was quite old for all the dynamism in it. It's about 28 years old. Not a young side, but experienced, and a lot of the side are in.
Well, a lot of them are in the top couture's, but also the Premiership as well. Quite physical leagues. They're well exposed to that kind of style of rugby.
You got Radradra and Gonova and Nakarawa even, are very used to Tuisova, of course, and they're very used to playing at the top level of European rugby, and very used to playing in France as well. And it just showed they just weren't they weren't shy by it in terms of just their output in the match. They didn't look tired. The scoreline in the end flattered France, and around the pitch they looked significantly superior outfit,
which was a pleasure to watch. It's a hint of poor old France, because we were half bigging them up, saying write them off at your peril, because the ingredients are all still there, and they're still on the way to something. They were looking good before this, but as much as this, it isn't just a complete another failure of a loss in terms of they still have those ingredients, but I just think stylistically they don't match up well against Fiji, especially a Fiji that's as honoured as that. It's just what France in the Six Nations, typically they're the ones bringing the change of pace and the broken field running, and kind of smashing some of those more rigid defensive structures by getting their hands free. But like when you do that against Fijians or South Sea Islanders in general, you're literally playing into their hands, and they couldn't cope. They made Fiji look very, very good in that in that kind of arena, playing it that way.
Fiji never gave France a chance to settle really, and France never took the chances when they came. The game was played. It was a brilliant game to watch. It was played at a furious speed though, and Fiji dictated a lot of that. Like every time they had the ball, they weren't kicking that often. They were just moving the ball and trying to get it into the wide channels, and just most importantly, they were using their physicality, but they were just keeping it alive, keeping it moving quickly. It's been under McKee now for the last few years. It's been basically their philosophy, and they like you see them in tier 2 games. That's how they beat the tier 2 teams. It's by upping the speed. But as you say, that's an advantage of France's when compared to structured European defences who like to control tempos, and it's an advantage against sides like Georgia and everything else. But when France tried against Fiji were super, super comfortable, and you saw there were some key moments like after explosive bits of play where Fiji nearly scored and then France broke out and then Fiji got it back and nearly scored again, and it ended with and France get up the pitch, it ends with a Fiji clearance into touch, and then France go quickly and try and keep it going and keep at it. And France even tried to tap and go a penalty and got called back at one point as well. It was like it was
there was a noticeable lack of on-field judgment and adapting to that from the French
for sure.
Because like the one area of the game that was consistently giving dividends was the line-out maul, which they seemed to move away from in the second half. Questionable call that, because for all of their keeping it tight, they didn't go to the one thing that had actually worked thus far. The set piece, they managed to get a little bit, like it looked like they were on top, but Fiji were still holding together after cracks like that, so they weren't getting the same purchase that they might in a top couture's game, in typical fashion of kind of scrum, penalty, kicks, try and chip away at the lead and do that. That seemed to be what they were there to do, or even from the early exchanges when like those few kicks Saran had in the first half, it seemed that was the kind of, they were trying to get that pace going, but got suckered in to a bit of that quick play, and that jouer mentality kind of worked against them in this instance, because they came across an outfit that are built to do that and want the game played that way, and
very proficient at it. They like when the game got into that way, into that mold, and how it took that sort of shape, you really did just get to see a very, very classy Fijian team, like very smart about the game, understanding it in both attack and defence, but with the ball in particular, just instinctually, all of them very, very good, and superb players around the park. Leone Nakarau in those wild channels, Kilia, Mata as well. But a huge shout out to the scrum half, who I wasn't even familiar with, Lamani, ahead of this game.
Good, sharp, accurate passes. Brought Ben Volavola, who you've had concerns about before, brought him onto the attacking line through just good, sharp passes.
Constantly thinking about where the space is, where the attack is, where they're weakest, and maintained a crazy pace. He was looking like a little Aaron Smith out there. He really was. He was just dealing. He was kept it going and kept it flowing and kept it drumming to his kind of tune. And it was an outstanding performance with ball in hand from them, and it did tire the French out. And the other key to it as well as just being outstanding instinctually, there was that coached focus in there. There was that, like, there were set plays they knew and understood.
The strike plays for the try was a beautiful thing that cut the French ribbons, and you wouldn't normally associate that.
A very narrow little screenplay, and the French fell for it. I mean, it was I think it was, who was it coming off the wing? Was it Gonova coming off his wing?
Or was it Tuisova?
Tuisova scored it actually.
He scored it.
He scored it. So it was Gonova coming off his wing, but it was the screenplay that was done in the narrowest of spaces, and the winger came from a blind spot, and essentially all it was doing was just giving Gonova, who's a heck of an athlete, a one step and a weak shoulder.
That was what I loved, how their game plan put them into spaces, put their big men into spaces where they could attack a weak shoulder. And the French really weren't ready for such a team that loved to physically dominate. They weren't able to, and they kind of knew it as well. Like by the end, it was they were panicked by the end, because they couldn't impose themselves physically, despite being physically imposing in the context of every other game they play usually. It was just, they kind of stacked up against a side that weren't going to allow that, and with ball in hand they found it very hard to deal with consistently. They couldn't bring them down. Like Radradra had one of his classic carries for the try, and it's just like, these
another gorgeous pass for that try as well. Short balls
to put him into that hole. Because it's like, sometimes their centres get a bit disjointed, and if balls get dropped, which did happen a few times even in that game, balls go loose and then there's a chance for sure, but France were just a little bit too inaccurate, which is something they've been guilty of for quite a while. It kind of came back, some of the things that are still haunting that side kind of reared their ugly head in that game,
and an immaturity that's striking.
Baptiste Duran, like you're saying, Machino is a phenomenal player. Baptiste Duran is an able deputy, but I don't think he's actually the petit general, which they could have used
for sure. And it was crying out for one of the halfbacks to just take control and just as a team to start making smarter decisions.
Things like no lads, let's maul this, or there was who was saying that, I don't know. Let's
play down there, but let's not just aimlessly kick when we're panicked. Let's kick when we know there's a bit of space. Let's even like if we know we're not breaking them down, let's try and generate a few plays or a shape to isolate someone from the back three, so we can put it in behind him.
Who was a leader in that team, kind of went on tilt, if you want to borrow that term, by the end, because he wasn't getting, like, he was still carrying well. He's a phenomenal ball carrier, so he still goes forward, but he wasn't getting the same purchase that he usually gets, and that just led to him getting more and more aggressive into the carry and then eventually getting smashed, and then I think it was actually Garrado's boot to his face that brought him off eventually. But it was just like poof, he flung himself into those contacts and was getting not nothing, he was getting something like the typical go forward ball, but then as the game went on it just looked like he was getting angrier and angrier and more bullish, and then eventually got floored.
The whole French team with the ball, I mean, the instinct would be to say, especially looking at that last 20 minutes, you know, that they're killing themselves by not going wide. They were super narrow, like in the last 10 when they were in there. But in the first half, they did try to move the ball, and Fiji just with a decent line speed, but it was as they were in attack, they were organised in defence. I mean, as much as they loved playing the chaotic ball and everything else, they had a plan to go to that place, and they got it there, and everyone was on the same page. So everyone was running. They had in their mind plays. Everyone was running tracking lines off each other. They were trying to create space into weak shoulders, and in defence, the same kind of thing. Like the defence was excellent in the sense that it was just, they stopped what France were doing. It was more man coverage, I guess you would say, than zone coverage. They were numbering up and sending like one player out, and it was a very direct shoot on his opposite man. But it shut France down. France couldn't get outside them. They didn't have enough shape to their attack, in honesty, France, but in terms of as a test for this Fiji defence, they had their homework done on them, and they just stopped them going outside. And kind of exposed a few of the flaws of Bastro in the midfield as well, which we do know, like with Dumoulin as well.
But there was a lack of, like, well, for one thing, they just weren't being able to bullishly win contacts. Like Bastro got bundled into touch at one point, which was a fun thing to see, because it's so rare in European rugby. He is a bit of a tour de force, and when they come across your more typical centre, I suppose it's easy for France to get a bit lazy in their attacking shape, because they know that giving it to these guys with the go forward, with the monster pack that they've already got, he'll likely get over the gain line anyway, and then there'll be a bit more space in a kind of a broken line, which is where they like to attack. It did not match up well for them to play their game, and they kind of got lost in it as well. The game, it was definitely, like, I watched it after the fact. You had watched it already. I was out, so like with the context of knowing what happened when I was watching it, it was curious, because it was like France were never in control of that game at all. And like by half time, they were like, they did get the try, but they went for it, and they knew that they were playing catch up. Then there was no, like, if they changed their game from what the plan was in the first 20 minutes, before the end of half time, they were desperately trying to scramble together, and then in the second half they just couldn't get their game going at all. And it was Fiji who was dictating.
A huge aspect of that we haven't mentioned yet as well was the savagery and the tigerishness at breakdown time from the Fijians, and they were like, I don't know how many steals they got, but it was a lot, and it was every time that a French ball carrier got isolated, and they got isolated too much. They weren't hunting in packs, and that's what allowed Fiji to just man up and make their tackles, which they got out of the line and made their tackles, which is half the battle anyway. It was superb. And then in on the ball at least 5 or 6 times, especially in that second half. They got huge turnovers at huge moments, and France it exposed, in my mind, some weaknesses going forward in France. As much as they have a big pack, their offensive breakdown and their ability to retain ball, like at times in the Six Nations they almost preferred not to have the ball.
They take moments off in games. They definitely aren't an 80-minute team still. France, they're kind of a bit
They
more
weren't a
push and pull
2-minute
and
team at the weekend. They had no control over it.
That's it.
They
Like
had
you,
no
you
phase
relinquish control by sacrificing being an 80-minute team. Although it might sound like we're opportunists who are going to bag our tries and nick the game, that's not really the ideal way to play. And you do relinquish a lot of control, especially when you lose the physical battles, because like both with the ball and without the ball, a lot of what they're relying on is a few key men making some big stellar moments. It's always the way that it's like a collection of world-class players in the French team, but not necessarily a world-class team at the end of it all. And like it looks that way, whereas where Fiji for the first time in a long time looked a complete team and playing for each other and bleeding in the crest, and then you had Nadolo not in the team, and yet he's on Twitter watching and he's like loving it. There seems to be a real purpose about Fiji coming up to the World Cup, which is invariably good.
Purpose is the word, but intelligence is the other as well, because the savage athletes are looking like, and they only got together the week before the Scotland game, but they fell into what has become a more typical shape for them. Like they have been better at shutting out teams in tier 2 matches. But they settled into a good shape. They played as a team. They were all on the same page. And I can only just think like they had their issues at set piece, especially at line out time, but also at scrums at times as well. They just about held it together. You have to think that that's going to improve now when John McKee, who's a guy we have to talk about as well, gets 3 months with them ahead of the World Cup. That's going to be massive. Like to have a proper prepared squad, like a training camp for a World Cup.
It's a difference maker for all the tier 2 teams, and like a lot of the teams like Argentina. We were making a point before, don't have to travel as far. It's a huge thing when you can get the players all together and drive towards the World Cup. And it's kind of one of those ones. It was an interesting point being made that it kind of suits the Southern Hemisphere teams a bit more in terms of the timing of the season, because it kind of throws the Northern Hemisphere season out of kilter every time it comes around. And there's still a Six Nations has to happen, which is so important that you need to focus on it because you can't sacrifice. There's a lot of pressure from media and things.
It's like having to peak in September, whereas like that's usually around the time that a Southern Hemisphere team has to peak, and a Northern Hemisphere team it's way off. But essentially, I think essentially much is ado about it, because you get the players into camp for a few months. It just changes it.
It can go either well and invariably each World Cup it goes well for some, and then some who are looking positive completely capitulate or get it kind of wrong. But Fiji looked like a team that are built for it and ready for the World Cup.
Is John McKee is a guy who I heard his name in passing as the Fiji coach the last number of years, and when I've been watching them, I've been impressed. He did just doing a bit of research on him this week. He's like super interesting now. This is his first head coach gig, but he had worked with Michael Bradley in the past. One of those intelligent Kiwis who's got himself a good job and is looking to make a name for himself. And the on the pitch evidence, like especially with a side like Fiji, it's just so important to get this aspect right. So important to not be looking flaky. So important to not be operating as individuals. And the way that they, for all of their individual talent, were entirely working as a team. Like as soon as the ball got into the wide channels, there was no sense of like, I'm going to put on some footwork, I'm going to charge, I'm going to make the break. It was just, where's the space? Boys were with each other. There was seemingly a lot of communication, and the same was true in defence. Like they never took minutes off. They were always together. They always were on the same page, and with a bloody good game plan, a good game plan to beat France. They just but a game plan they're probably going to have to stick with going forward as well in most games. That's like, this is their ideal way of playing. Indeed. And their whole thing is now going to have to be about taking games to that place where it's wild, where the ball is constantly moving, like a Super Rugby game.
Because it plays to their strengths. It's like there are shades of Ben Ryan's Fiji in the sevens thing about it, and like there's a fair warning. Fiji may be a small nation in the context of the world, and compared to the likes of the France or England types or South Africa with these huge playing populations, but what they do have are people that are just built to play rugby. And seem to export, live and breathe it as well. Like you're always looking at tier 2 teams like Japan when they come to town, and like going, their skills are quality, but they're lacking some of that physicality, and you're just looking across the park going, the matchups aren't good here. Things like Maro Itoje swimming through them and twicking them, and it's like, sure, they're at an innate disadvantage. But with Fiji, that's not the case. It's the opposite. They're built to play it, and they just don't seem to have the discipline more often than not. Whereas when you look at the sevens in that journey, when they started to dip because of that flaky tendency, it took a stoic coach saying, look, I'll drop you. I'll bring 14 more boys who want to be on the plane, and you can stay at home because they'll all be class as well. And so like bringing them all together with that shared purpose and getting them drilled into them, these just few systems that allow them to play. and they're going to cause upsets. You're already eyeballing their World Cup group as like a seriously interesting affair with themselves, Georgia, Australia, and Wales. Crazy games.
It's gonna be a hell of a lot of fun. Yeah, it's true what you're saying about the island nations, in particular Fiji. That with a lot of the other tier 2 teams, what you see is everything else being there. You know, we have the infrastructure, we have the money, we're going to get the smartest minds, we're going to put them together. Now we got to find ourselves some rugby players. And with the island nations, but in particular in Fiji, what you just have is a nation full of rugby players. Many of whom wearing, you know, different national test jerseys, and many of who playing abroad, but just a huge amount of rugby players. And what's necessary, what needs to be put in, obviously, is the infrastructure, getting those coaching minds, getting rugby coaches who come from the great rugby coaching tradition in New Zealand is so key. And this guy McKee, I think, is the real deal. And I just looking at them,
well, it's like, don't sleep on them, because a World Cup, anything can happen. And like in another sport, they're Olympic champions.
It's like, and just looking at them in terms of, you look around the field, like Mata at number 8 is probably one of the best players now in the Pro 14 this year. Like a superb athlete.
He's added a lot to the Edinburgh pack.
We know how good Leone Nakarawa is in there. You look at their backline, it's a who's who. Radradra has been one of the players of the season last, and Tuisova the same. Gonava on his day is a stormer. Obviously this young 9 is superb as well. And then you have guys like Mamani Nadolo to come in.
Indeed.
And like in terms of the athletes, in terms of on the pitch, you should be talking about, you know, are they going to make a semi-final? Are they going to, like, they're that good in terms of their personnel,
what I would reserve on that is purely that I think of all the strong teams, France match up best for them. So I'm still not convinced by like things like Vola Vola at 10. Is it going to be easy for some of these tier 1? If they come across in England, say, are they going to? Is it going to take that shape that England wins typically get, when you just see the bludgeoning force and the kind of slower tempo than what Fiji want, set piece dominance, and like, we don't know the answer to that yet. They did very well in the set piece, which was it's just encouraging signs. But I'm wondering how they're going to stack up in the context of all that. And like,
I agree. I still think most likely your bookie bet is Wales and Australia to go through. But my point is that this is just personnel wise, they have it all there. And now they have like this young and this ambitious coach, very smart, who has them playing great rugby. Like they're going to have a year now to basically do prep on. I think Australia should be a big game they target.
They can nick it on Australia based on all evidence at the moment.
They could get Australia into that game where the ball is moving at 100 miles an hour, and personnel wise they are better than them at that game. They would, like, as much as you like your Karevis and everything else, you would need a hell of a performance from Beale and Folau to rescue Australia if the game becomes like that.
Which is kind of going to be the story of a lot of their World Cup if it's to go well for them. I think it'll be a fair bit of Beale and Folau and Pocock rescuing them.
And Pocock obviously massive for them, but in terms of like, don't sleep on them is right, because they could very well be a big thing coming into next year.
It could easily be a thing that they beat Australia, lose to Georgia.
That would be mad.
And Wales go marching on.
Just very very happy with them. I thought it was a really fun game, but the way they were playing, the organisation of them, the controlling of the pace, was beautiful.
Pleasure to see it.
I
didn't expect it, and as you were right in saying, we didn't broadcast that, didn't really shine as much of a light as we should have, obviously. But I think we weren't alone in missing the fact that was the big game of the weekend. Obviously, what we billed as the big game of the weekend was Wales South Africa, which I suppose we could segue into now, because that was also a tremendous game, and fair dues to Wales. We didn't call it. We were actually sitting on the fence and couldn't really like decide what we were thinking.
What I had said was that I also acknowledged that I could easily be naive on this just from not watching enough of Wales as a national team, and sort of just drawing parallels between Wales and Scarlets and leaving.
Well, they're different entities entirely now.
Truly, and but in what I had said is that matchup player for player, I thought that the Springboks were stronger. I thought that they were going to find the killer plays, and I thought, Wales were going to have to score tries to win. But to be fair to Wales, like in another day they may not even have had to, and a big factor in that 6-9 win over Australia you have to think is the defence, which was incredible, and
Yeah.
that was the big factor that we didn't much as I was saying, like, ooh, Springboks have a better team, Wales have the intangibles, Springboks tired.
There were some tangibles like defence.
There were some tangibles like defence,
Yeah.
and it was especially that second half. It was super impressive.
Oh, yeah.
They'd like the Springboks. Like, we watched them against Scotland, we watched them against England. The degree to which they just physically dominated those teams.
Yeah.
Like, every contact against England and Twickenham, I know they lost the match, but in terms of the balance of play, it was all Springboks. They were butchering things in the 22, but every carry against big English forwards, they were just going through them like shit through a goose. And then they did the same thing against Scotland.
Yeah.
It was a wake up call for Scotland and Murrayfield just being dominated to that extent.
Yeah.
And obviously they muddled up a bit and nearly ended up making it a very close game, as they did in Twickenham.
Yeah.
But that was not the tale of this loss. They were not able to get over the gain line. They were chopped. Wales' tackling and their simple blitz defensive system is phenomenal. They don't let up.
I think what we did, you definitely saw a South Africa that were a little blunted from the health. Like, they weren't playing at their right pace, and they were a little bit just predictable in terms of where the ball was going. It was the same kind of plays coming from the same playmakers. You're drawing a point that they probably do need Faf currently for their system.
I agree with
entirely.
That,
and yet it was still a close game, but I thought Wales could have actually won by more. Like, even especially those first 20 minutes, man. That was like, I was watching it and I was going like, this is how this game's going to go.
Yeah.
Because South Africa looked like that. Even towards the very beginning, they had a play where they went from right to left and then quickly kind of toe poked it through.
Yeah.
And you were making points like, I suppose it's a fine play.
Yeah.
It's all right, like, as a play. It's not bad. Now
that was Jesse Creel's little kick into the
through,
corner,
but it's like, it's not the play of a team that are coming here to try and throw the ball around and score a load of tries and put Wales to the sword. That was not the buzz at all. Wales were chopping them down and kind of sending their attack into reverse a little bit before they'd end up aimlessly kicking it. They did a very good job actually of exposing their wingers in terms of Wales' ball in hand.
Totally.
I thought, they did a really good job, because like, the wingers are new this year, have been stellar, and have not really been challenged in that way, and yet it is a tendency. And we notice in the Northern Hemisphere it tends to be less of a trait than in the Southern Hemisphere, just in terms of how wingers act on defence.
This is specifically about the rush, is it?
Yeah. Like, I think Wales just caught the inward shot, like, just managed to get on the outside of the outside man by duping them in, and
especially
just getting them caught.
For that second try immediately off first phase. It's what the Springboks have been doing this year. It was a great job at shutting down the All Blacks, but there were hints of it with Finn Russell last week with Scotland that if you get to the edges, if you do push up and you are against elite players, they are going to find the space that you're leaving outside, and the Springbok defence works best when there are shooters in the wide channels, but everybody inside him is rushing. So it's all about pressure. You have 2 seconds to make a decision as a 10, then you can't throw that pass because the winger is there, and then you get mushed. That's what they did to the All Blacks. They just forced them to operate at lightning quick speeds, and the All Blacks often couldn't do it. In general play, their line speed wasn't nearly as tigerish as it was that day.
It wasn't the same. So you can see the symptoms with their ball in hand in that early play, but also off their defence. They were a bit short of leadership on that front, and it was just a little bit passive. That much that Wales were getting on the front foot and winning those contacts. Wales were the ones who were there, dogged and determined, and their autumn has been a stellar success, as has their year, which has kind of been blinded by the Ireland talk, and obviously Ireland have had a great year as well. Ireland, New Zealand, huge game and all this, but Wales seething in the background because they shouldn't be in the background, have been having an awesome year. And and you were right in saying I have watched a few more. I did watch some of the summer games. This autumn has impressed me a lot, because they've kind of moved away from. My take on the Six Nations was that they were implementing some of that Scarlet's structure and trying to sprinkle some of the Scarlet's recent success over the national side. They were getting
quick tries.
Yes, striking, which is what you associate with Welsh rugby, which is part of what we made us overly critical of the power-based game. They were kind of almost exclusively doing sometimes with ball in hand.
I think we were appropriately critical of it. It was very limited.
It's not very Welsh either. Look, what you associate with Welsh rugby is kind of Scarlet's. That's certainly my take on it, is that kind of sweeping end-to-end stuff where you can just grab a try from speed and accuracy alone. Beautiful thing. And they've brought that back in, even things like selecting Lydiate for the Australia game and stuff, Lydiate back into the fold, it was reminding me, it's like, Warren Gatlin's been there for a long time now, so this is more like a 10-year project. When you're thinking of a coach and his World Cup cycles, it's like a 4-year thing. But you shouldn't sleep on the fact that Wales have had this system now for nearly
especially in defence, they have it down to a
and they know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it means they match up against sides that are like South Africa are still a more physical side than them, I think, and player for player. But that didn't matter because they were a little bit slow and laboured in what they were trying to do. They were leaning a little bit too much on what's worked before, which was some of the big men, and those were the marked men, and Wales were happy to chop.
That was the huge thing.
Yeah.
What Springboks would like to do in an ideal world is get over the gain line, get over the gain line, get over the gain line. Then we swoop it out. Pollard gets it, swooping past LaRue, space, numbers. Now we're dangerous wingers.
Yeah.
That's how their attack functions. The very first part of that, to get over the gain line aspect of it, and maybe there's an argument that there isn't enough variation in there. A lot of the time, you know who's carrying it. He has his latchers, and he's just
particularly in the midfield. They could do well. This is where it comes off 9 a bit more because it's like you need to.
Faf is always a variation because he's always an option.
Yeah, if he's running a little bit, and then you can catch the Lindy or Creel on a short line that just keeps the defence a bit more honest than it was over the weekend.
That is something that they do use when Faf is around, but. On this game, they were quite predictable. They had their big men. They did have their latchers, but Wales's tackling just stopped them dead. And at times, like you associate the chop tackle with Wales. At times as well, it was just physically very strong. It was like Ireland against the All Blacks.
Alan Wynne actually impressed me a lot in the physical exchanges.
What else is new,
Oh well, he impressed me a lot, did he?
Yeah.
As ever, he's just he's a phenomenal player. Loved his captaincy as well. I love the way as well when a fracas breaks out, he's always near the middle of it. Yeah. And he's getting some words said that kind of seem to have the effect of throwing the other team on tilt, but also seems to diffuse the ref somehow. Yeah. I don't know how he manages it. It's an interesting little balance, but he's a great captain, and like he's some player. Like a couple of years ago, it was kind of it's kind of comes from watching too much Ospreys rugby, which can't be healthy anyway. But it's like we were wondering about Alan Wynne, thinking how much longer he's got. Certainly in this podcast, having to do a lot of work. Certainly when you want
Sergio Parise.
This is it. Well, it's starting to shift that way in the Ospreys, but it's like in the Wales jersey, that's where he belongs.
Yes.
And it's where it's like no one's coming to Cardiff to try and bully us. We're going to chop them all day.
And chop them, but also just win those contacts. And then that was massive. That winning of those contacts was huge. It stopped the Springboks. And then what the Springboks did is try and go wide anyway, and they did use that variation. They got Pollard on the ball, the flash pass out to LaRue, and LaRue was just having to make plays that often weren't on. He was under a lot of pressure. Wales' defence is really great. It's great in so many ways, but one of the things that they do really well is maintain their width all the time. I mean, I can't even recall a time that you saw even Cheslin, for all of his bounciness, get actually on the outside of them. They were forced inside. Both wingers, Dianchi and Cheslin, were forced inside by the Welsh wingers being outside them. It was a great achievement. And then the one or two times that they were on the wide channels, they did have them slightly outflanked. The only way to get there was with a crazy LaRue pass, and then a lot of them were forward. He has a lot of work to do as a playmaker in that Springbok side.
Well, and it was just a little bit more help as well. It was a bit too telegraphed for my liking, and a bit slightly too pedestrian. Like there was no rhythm to their attack either, really. A lot of the time, how much of that was stifled by their physicality.
It was a great shutdown from Wales defensively. Like if you're Sean Edwards, you're just super happy. It's just perfect. Like for all of the Springbok success, they have their weaknesses, and Wales
exploited them well.
Exposed what they were doing wrong.
It reminded me a lot of our particular encounter with them in a World Cup in 2011.
Wales
is one where they just kind of made the defense look, or made the offense ball in hand look very static, very pedestrian, predictable at times in terms of where the go forward was coming from, and it wasn't coming from there. And then striking at the same time with a couple of really well taken, very simple looking tries in the end, and it's like depressingly so when you're looking at it from the other end, going like, come on. But they're just a ruthless machine. This is it. Like in the context of the Six Nations next year, it's Wales who I'm fearing, and it's
for sure.
It's an unsung thing, because it's like a lot was being made of. I think we were reading in an Issa Nasiwa article talking about how Ireland and the All Blacks should be a rivalry for years to come and all this, and I'm like, well, that's fanciful thinking, and I'd like to hope so, but one rivalry that's very real and doesn't need any bigging up, or doesn't need any kind of media hype, because it doesn't get any until the game week, but it's Ireland and Wales. And
it's primarily like as opposed to Ireland and England, which always gets linked with all kinds of history. It's a rugby based rivalry, this one, and it's between the rugby communities, and it's gone on forever, and it's going to be a massive match when it happens. As far as what Wales did with the ball, they were looking at, like, because I haven't watched them that much, and I was thinking, like, is this man Scarlets? I mean, they had Anscombe at 10,
which he played very well. Shout out!
It was all very polished and simple. There were nice structures in there. There were nice pods of forwards. I prefer their ball in hand with Liam Williams at fullback. That was big. That was a big factor.
It was a huge factor in the ball in hand. One thing, he didn't cover the backfield as well as Halfpenny manages to. Credit where it's due, because there were a few kind of speculative enough kicks through that did find grass and then touch, and it was like it was just too long at test level that you're thinking, there shouldn't be landing there and that. But with ball in hand, it just changes them a lot and gives space to their men outside.
And genuinely, there's a nice balance to that backline. There's a nice rhythm to it. Anscombe obviously had a good day, and it still remains to be seen whether he's going to be the guy they go to. We were big enough Patchell last week.
We were, but it has to be a kind of a form dictates thing as well, because like Anscombe has been playing well, be it from fullback or 10, and it's you want him in your team.
Yeah, for sure. And in terms of their centres, they're really balanced. Hadley Parks and Jay Davis. Jay Davis was great at getting into the space. Hadley Parks had some furious carries. Definitely got the better of that exchange with Delindy, who left the field early. Such was Hadley Parks' dominance, and Wales, there was just a nice, very simple rhythm to it. They weren't doing anything exceptional. They weren't leaning too much on one thing.
They or one person. That's kind of been a change of, because they're very proud of their academy now. Like, it was a thing in years gone by under Gatland that the team was kind of set already, and there were things like Tipperick's non-inclusion despite form kind of dictating for ages that he should be there, but he wasn't. But now they're getting that balance right between form and playing and kind of giving game time to other players. I think they're building very, very nicely and suitably under the radar. They'll enjoy not hogging the spotlight the year out from the World Cup. Which is
I like them a lot. I liked the balance of them. I thought they were very good in a lot of areas. The scrum was solid as well against a tough Springbok scrum. They obviously line out. Going forward, it remains to be seen against the top teams how good their line-out's going to be, but obviously Alan Wynne-Jones is an elite operator, so too Ken Owens, so you have to think there's strength there. Their scrum, again, as I say, solid. So all over the park. Breakdown Tipperick, one of the best out there. All over the park.
Their scrum is another greatly improved aspect, because that was a kind of a chink in the armour in years gone by, and like for even when they were more exclusively a power-based game, they didn't quite have the scrum to back it up, which was always a bit of a thing that's going to stifle you when you're trying to win that way, and it led to a few close, tough losses. The only way they ever scored a maul try was with 13 men as well. Oh yeah, and they do like joining the maul.
They do, and like they do now. This team though do have a lot of different ways of scoring, and I'm just very excited about them.
They look excellent. They really do.
Absolutely.
And this is it. Like, speaking as a purely from an Irish point of view, if the case is next year, as I suspect it is, that Ireland and Wales are the powerhouses of European rugby, and that it all comes down to Cardiff on the last day, that's a good place to be. I like that a lot, because there needs to be that kind of balance, and it's just good for the Celtic cousins too.
We'll see if that happens. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that has to happen. Wales this year have to go to Murrayfield.
They do.
Obviously playing England and Cardiff. That's all to come. From the Springbok perspective, obviously this match is going to leave a little sour taste.
It will. It's a good way to punctuate what has been. It's an uppy downy season, but generally up, considering where they come from.
Oh, totally.
There have been definite positives. There have been a few little kind of shining errors, a few little glaring weaknesses that need to be addressed now a year out. But they're, like, as far as cleaning house is concerned, which we kind of outlined in podcast gone by as what one of Razzie's main jobs when he gets in, is just kind of clean up shop and get these good players focused, get them defending aggressively, and get them going.
It's definitely a good squad. On the field though, there'll be disappointments that certainly their inability to adjust and read the game, that it wasn't working for them to go forward ball. They didn't vary it enough with ball in hand. I know Papier was there instead of Faf, so it was definitely more leaning on Villy and Pollard. And what they ended up opting to do for a lot of the first half was bombs. Like, they went for those overhead bombs the same way they exit, and they don't have an elite fielder of a ball. So Liam Williams had a field day with a few of them, and it generated momentum and chaos ball, which Wales feed off. And it was a mistake, and it still is a mistake that they opt to. They're just doing it because maybe just because Ireland do it. They're just doing it because other teams do it. What they need is to do something else with the ball. Wales, as we say, very good defence. Push up really quickly,
very
wide to the line. Inexperienced, well, not inexperienced, but not ideal cover of the field in Liam Williams. And I
think their wingers have a similar bad habit of creeping up into well, it's not even a bad habit in the context of their defence, but there is space for the chip on top.
There were times watching that game back that Gareth Davis wasn't at all in the backfield, wasn't covering. There was load of space for chips in behind. Somebody needed to make that call. Those plays, they tried one or two towards the end. They were always frantic and at inopportune moments.
Yeah.
But there were moments to take them on, and they didn't. And those are the kind of heads-up plays that really you need. Like if you want to be winning World Cups, you need to be able to cope with adversity and things not going your way, and you need to be able to produce plays in those moments.
Yeah.
And from a Bok perspective, that simply didn't happen. I mean, they very much just stuck to their rhythms and got nowhere.
It became a bit telegraphed. Like if you're leaning on those two playmakers in the back line, you're kind of spinning it out prematurely anyway. They do tend to stand deep, so if they're not getting the go forward in the tight anyway, they're just going to get snagged behind the game line, which like Wales shooters knew exactly who to aim for. So it was like, and all day that was true, because there was just no, like even a few chips over the top, a few short, like I don't know, they could have varied it a lot more, but didn't.
But I remember, because Sean Edwards, as much as Gatland's attack has changed and personnel have changed, Sean Edwards' defence has stayed quite true.
Quite similar, yeah.
Wales had a great year. I think it was one of the years. No, it was 2014. So Ireland won the Six Nations, but Wales were around and they were backing themselves. And it was the same Warren Ball Wales that we know and love. They were with their usual players, and they went to Springboks on a June tour. Went to South Africa rather, and they rushed up the same way, and it was the opening test, and the Boks absolutely stuffed them. And they did it, I remember, just with little dinks. I think it was Pollard and Leroux as well, just little dinks over the top for all.
Pollard, or was it Stain? Might have been Stain.
Okay, maybe it was, but it was
But yeah,
it was constantly just little chips over the top for I think Leroux to run onto a lot of the time, and they just tore them asunder. They really absolutely exposed it completely, and did for them. And for all of Wales's, we have our solid defence. That's always been an area that if you're accurate, you can.
The All Blacks have shown a few tries that way.
Bowden
as
Barrett
well.
scored tries like that against them.
It's a good tactic against them, more so than the bomb, because they're well equipped to deal with it. Like they haven't always been, but like Ireland, remember, did that game that they exposed that game that Warren really hated in Dublin, where we just kicked everything and anything,
but not into the air.
No, it was like it was finding the space behind their defensive line, because their wingers do roam up to bring that intense line speed and shut off the outside.
The problem for the Springboks, though, in trying to copying Ireland, it has its, like, you think it has its merits. Ireland's game plan, especially that particular game plan, was all about the sheer game reading quality of and kicking ability of Murray and Sexton, and not all teams have that.
Indeed, yeah.
Also, copying Ireland in the way that they play Wales is the worst possible context to copy.
This
Ireland
is true. Kryptonite. For an Irish game plan is Welsh tackling.
Yes, and they were naive in doing that. That said, last test of the year, they did hang in the game. They're not going to be too disappointed by it.
No,
but they didn't properly prepare for it enough. But it's just important that they learn their lessons. In those early parts of the game, just simple things like getting around the corner, like for that Francis try at the very start. They were like Georgia, like they just weren't getting around the corner quick enough, and they were shipping slight tackles as a result of it. It was good multi-phase from Wales, and it ended up in a deserved try with a good offload. But the tempo was just doing them for defence. They weren't getting around the corner. They weren't slowing the ball up, and they looked very, very weak in that particular play.
Definitely, as I was saying, what was important was Wales were quicker than them throughout as well. Much quick speed of thought and speed of action. And they got around them and just kind of they dictated the pace. It was great to see, because it was a pretty assured performance from a now mature Welsh team with a lot of balance. It's not overly reliant on its old school leaders. It's managed to, things like Sam Warburton retiring this year is obviously a sad thing, but it's kind of marking an evolution in this Welsh project, that there are now players filling into that model, understanding what he brought them, as far as like he was the model of that in that 2011 World Cup. He was the model that got them training right. He was Warren's man for the example of what the team should be. And now we've gone through, similar to what we always harp on Ireland and Leinster, through like a gradual series of events and years that stack up together to make learnings. And this Welsh team are now getting to a point where they're properly mature. They know exactly what they're doing. Good balance all over the park, and players to come in should people fall. Not the most attritional game plan in the world either, so there's not as much fear. Like, I wouldn't be as fearful for Wales as far as injuries are concerned as I would be for Ireland, just purely because of the way they play the game in terms of the World Cup.
They don't have any particular player that they lean on too much. You think Ken Owens and Tipper could be the worst losses,
maybe,
and Alan Wynne.
Alan Wynne, that's what I'm thinking. It would be a big Alan Wynne shaped gap in the thing. But no team is without a talisman like that as well.
Indeed.
They'll need him to bring them as far as the World Cup. So like I'm excited for Wales' chances really now. It's been a great autumn, unbeaten autumn, and like a great scalp to get over the Springboks, who have looked impressive this year.
It was a cracking game, and well done Wales. Maybe see you around
from
Paddy's Day in
cousins.
Cardiff.
Yeah. It'll be some game. I'm looking forward to it.
But
yeah, I suppose.
Before we move on, I just wanted to mention one thing, which is just it could be an end of the podcast note, in the sense that it's just it was a moment that happened in the match, but it wasn't illustrative of it at all. It was just one moment when the Springboks were attacking the Welsh line, and they had a strong scrum, and they drove through the Welsh pack, and then the ball bobbled out the back of the Springbok scrum. This was on the Welsh 5 metre line, and they were gunning for a try. And then the Welsh players got up on them, tackled Papier, I think it was.
Messy ball created from a dominant scrum.
And ended up being a turnover. And I just remember thinking, like, look, part of it is the skill of the number 8, hold the ball at the base. That matters tremendously.
It does.
But referees, I love the referees who let the game go, generally speaking. But there's something to be said for penalising infringements at the scrum and just rewarding teams who are dominating the scrum. It was a very clean scrum that ended up in a Welsh infringement to tight head. And the ref decided, because the ball came out of the scrum and the scrum was still moving cleanly, the ref decided, even though very clearly the penalty was infringed before the ball had left the scrum, he was just like, there's the ball. Sure, will we not just play it rugby?
Yeah, which if you're a diehard prop, you're gonna feel a bit terrible about that, really. Like all the work that's done, and then it's like, you turn around and it's a turnover. And it's
like the scrumming can piss people off, and I get that. But the worst part of scrumming is when refs are getting so pernickety that they're trying to coach the players, and they're taking ages about setting a scrum, and they can't get it square, and props are playing fiddly sticks, and the scrum goes down, and everything like that, which again, with good officiating, can just be, no, you've technically infringed there, I'm not going to give you a coaching lesson, I'm going to penalise you. That's fine. But the thing that I hate is when a team gets you on the scrum. It's a big part of the game. It's a big element of it. And if a team has you in the scrum at a big moment and beats you, and you infringe, that's a penalty. That you should get that reward. And too often, especially when the ball comes back and it's clean ball, like I've seen refs in recent years, it's creeping in. It's the Nigel Owens factor, which is a great thing for rugby. That the game is flowy, and it's produced refs. It's like Angus Gardner and Maitreya, and people who let things go. But like when you see a referee, when a scrum is trotting forward and the ball's at the base, go, use it. You go, what are you talking about? No, there's no interest in using it. I want my penalty. We're dominating their scrum. Rugby is happening here in the scrum.
Indeed, and it's so often overlooked. By like it's the same kind of line of thinking that would ultimately lead it towards more rugby league than anything else. You'll have uncontested kind of set pieces and things. I don't want that. It's not necessarily about trying to make it rugby league. It's trying to get the game flowing, and I get that, and you just, from a spectator point of view, time when the ball is dead can be seen as a negative thing. The scrum's not the sexy thing that's going to bring in the fan who hasn't seen rugby before, isn't going to be as enamoured with the scrum as he is with the coast to coast Fijian offloading try. Obviously that's more spectacular, but the game isn't just that. No, the game's more complicated than that, and tight head props have a role to play in all that. It's a very important one, and it leads to like a body type that's so unique. When you think of what all the things that go into being a tight head prop, or a loose head for that matter as well, but someone who's in the front row scrummaging, it's very akin to like things like wrestling, Greco wrestling and stuff. That some of the manipulation going on, we're muggles, we don't know, because we can't claim to speak on authority.
Visual understanding.
But it's only through watching. But there's a lot going on, and ask like Mike Ross is someone who we've listened to interviewed. He gets very technical. He's super nerd about the stuff. So like someone like him watching that, I'm sure it boils his blood, because you're just like, it's a huge part of the game, and it needs to be not ignored. And it's something that, as far as consistency with refs, it's an issue as well, because French refs and the top coutures in general, if you're watching a top coutures game, that is not overlooked at all.
No,
the scrum
is
scrutinised, and it's left in for probably a little longer than at international level for sure, but it's a big part of the game, and it's like
one of the advantages of the game in general. One of the big, like you once said that one of your mates who is not a sport guy rather at all, liked rugby because he said it was illustrative of war. It was like two sides fighting.
It was kind of interesting, but he's like, I like rugby though. It's the most kind of illustrative of war. Which was a good one.
Whatever about what that says.
I don't know
what's going on what's going on in the dude's head, but what like
I liked it.
I love it in the sense that it's illustrative of the amount of versatility and the amount of different ways to win a rugby game, different ways to dominate a game, different looks that you can have, not just in players around the field, but in teams, and different identities that they can take. And the scrum is a huge part of that. Like I would really enjoy it next year if Fiji tear loose and hammer Georgia and maybe put it up to Australia, maybe make a quarterfinal. But I would also love it if the Georgians could stymie the Fijians, get them to stop working.
You get to see a first half that's really slow and physical, and
just maul them at the scrums and maraud them. And that's where, like, Australian fans in particular, where the sport is constantly in competition. You know, it's not just a sense of we are rugby fans, let's, you know, discuss how to make a good rugby team. Like, rugby is competing for eyeballs, so they're constantly trialing this new stuff of basically just trying to turn all rugby into super rugby. It's like, no, we 6 points for a try, 7 points for a try, 20 points for a try, and -2 for a kick. And he kicked it, dock him points. And like, it would make a fun, entertaining brand. It's like that competition that they're doing over there. I only managed to catch a couple of games, that Fiji and Drua won, which was great. That competition was a lot of fun to watch, but it's only one style of, it's only one aspect of the complex game of rugby. And I think the refs are basically doing a good job of getting the game to flow these days. But that criticism is just one that I would lean on. It's just like, you have to, without harming on them, without letting it kill the game, you have to pay attention to what's going on in a scrum, and understanding that a winning scrum can be a big moment for a team and should be rewarded. And it's like, certainly Irish crowds are no mugs on that front. Like, if we win a big scrum, even on our own line, that gets very often more of a cheer than a try, because it's as big a moment. It's a huge thing. You're making a play.
Making a play, which is what it's all about. But even like some of these kind of new interpretations, like, they are doing a good job of letting it flow. I wish they'd realised that. Some of the talk about, like, bringing tackle heights down below a nipple line as well, so then eventually what'll come with that is, like, just crazy offloads everywhere. You have to be able to stuff the offload too. It doesn't need to be just all tries, back and forth basketball scores.
And it's all the nipple line one is weird because it's about stopping concussion. Well, I've never heard of a guy get concussion from being hit here.
It's rare enough, I think. I think it can actually happen. You can get, like, whiplash from a shot even down there. It gives your head jerks.
Hang on, let's cancel shots.
So, like, I suppose tip rugby then for World Cup 20.
Hang on. I heard about a guy who got tipped in a tip rugby game and he got a concussion.
So but then he managed to sue successfully for some money. No,
that means we have to make it illegal.
No one's advocating this, and I think like, the last World Cup came at a timely moment to remind teams that, like, attack is the best form of defence, and that was kind of my big take on the last World Cup, was going like, sure, for all your defensive cleverness, Northern Hemisphere teams more often than not, it's like, these teams are just going to score tries in the first half. And what happens when they score tries in the first half? You haven't been allowing for this. The first half is made of 3-pointers, then 3 alls, then 6 threes, then 6 alls, then 9 threes, then half time. No, but what if you're 2 tries down? So, like, that's already become an emphasis, and they are letting the game flow, getting better en masse at communicating rather than just waiting to blow the whistle, which was the huge problem in that. That's what annoys fans at the most when you're watching the game. It's just like, the guy's obviously illegal. There's no sense of hands off, let go now, release, which is what people like Nigel Owens are the best at. That's the thing that he does better than everyone. And more refs are coming in with that in mind, and that does have the effect of letting the game flow, and by, like, just keeping the whistle, not being whistle happy, and not pinging on everything, giving players a chance to get out if they're listening to you. That's all very important, very well. You don't need to go overboard changing too much, because before you know it, like, it'll just get a bit silly, and then you'll have to rework some of these things.
The thing that they're mad on it is the tackle law, but we have our criticisms. They're always, you know, respectful and everything else, and always in the broader context of right now, World Rugby and rugby referees are producing a great quality of game. But a couple of issues. We spoke the other week about the side entries, and this week
that's still an ongoing issue.
It is still
unresolved.
An ongoing issue. This week just mention those scrums, and you'll notice it now once we've said it. If you're watching them, you'll notice the next time that a scrum is absolutely dominant and the ball's at the back, and some refs more than others just go, use it, I see it, there it is, I want to see some spinny play.
Some number 8s are better than that than others. shout out to Jamie Heaslip, who's formerly thing. He was one of the best I've ever seen
at controlling the ball at
a little bit of footwork to control the ball at the base. It's something CJ is often guilty of not doing it. Jack Conan's guilty of not doing it as well.
I think it was Kieran Reid who pioneered the trapping the ball between the legs and hopping
forward
along in the scrum.
I remember that. I can't remember which game it was, but I do remember seeing him do that. I love that. Like you do need to have challenge the number 8 to play a bit of ball as well, which is
the only thing is if you're doing that, you're definitely not pushing in the scrum.
No,
but
a lot of number 8s view that as optional. It depends on who you ask about all that. But you're right in saying ultimately there should dominant scrums are a part of the game and should be rewarded. That's something that the French have in spades that we need to implement across the rest of rugby too, and not let it go completely silly. But
so
with that,
right now, speaking broad concepts of the rugby, right now we're talking about 1 year out from the World Cup. Well, less even now. The World Cup starts in September. Teams are going to be prepping for the World Cup. Well, obviously they've been prepping long term, but the serious preparation is going to start for Southern Hemisphere teams sooner than us, but probably around April, May they're going to start getting drafted camps together.
It's getting to decision time.
There's a lot more than decision time. It's getting into conditioning time nearly, especially down south. And in that context, the spring tour is over. Obviously, guys are about to go on holiday. This is the last non-World Cup season for them now. This is next year's the World. This is what it's all about. This is what for all the test teams. It's been all about this now for the last 4 years. It's been all about this, and we're just going to take a look at where we think these teams, a lot of the teams, the top teams, stand going into the World Cup. We'll mention every team in the World Cup.
Well, not going into the World Cup year.
Going into the World Cup year. Exactly, because things can happen.
Indeed,
trust me, we're not going in alphabetical order, and we'll look at some teams other than others, but I just wanted to talk first about Australia. Australia, who so ignominiously were stuffed out the gate by England last week.
They were, and it was very poor, wasn't it?
Good
it was
grief,
they you can talk about the incident before half time, which was talked about, the Owen Farrell tackle.
I guess we should mention it.
I know it was according to some people that was the salient takeaway from the game, which I just find baffling, because what I was watching was a team that were thoroughly outclassed and outmuscled get monstered by England, which isn't the first time. Last November something similar happened, and it's just I don't know what they have anymore. I don't know if they know what they have anymore. It's going to boil down to the same thing. It's throwing in your key playmakers and trying to build a team around, give them the ball and hope something happens. Because
more than that, the guys who aren't those guys are really stacking up poorly against the top teams. Like the rugby, even in the last couple of years, the combination of physicality and dynamism is just going up and up and up. Like amongst tight forwards.
You're looking at your James Ryan breakthrough seasons type.
Tyke Furlong, Brodie Retallick then at the other end. But even beyond those stars, at a base level, you're starting to see more and more of those guys. And more these Australian forwards in particular, but also just around the park, they're really struggling to cope with the top sides just physically. They're not making tackles. They're looking weak around the corner. They're getting hurt by contacts badly. And they were looking at parts of that England game. They were looking decidedly tier 2, especially in that second half.
It was ominous enough actually thinking of it, because it's Czech is getting a load of blame and a load of flack now, and we're somewhat biased as Leinster fans because we have enjoyed a lot of what Czech has brought to Irish rugby and particularly to Leinster rugby. Do really rate him as a coach. I think he's someone who has Australia's best interests at heart, and I think some of the criticism he's coming in for is thoroughly unfounded, because the issue is personnel. And it's the one instance that you were making the point that it's caught up with them, and that their performance in the national jersey looks a bit more comparable to what they've been doing in Super Rugby, all of their teams. And in Super Rugby they've been so second best. It's painful, and it's a team all the teams aren't bolstered by having those few key playmakers all working together to try and pull with sheer will, pull a team together, which is what I think the story of their World Cup run. I don't even think they got the due credit they deserve for getting all the way to the final. I was shocked. That was not my prediction at all, that Australia would get through, because all of these issues were coming, and Matt Williams is someone we hear a lot of in Irish media and stuff, and he knows Australian rugby inside and out, and he has been singing this tune for the better part of a decade. That the game's on the decline, eyeballs are being lost, players aren't playing the game at a younger level, and now when you look at who are their best players consistently, repeatedly, it's Folau, it's it's Beale on his day, and it's Pocock. And these guys are getting on now, and it's like who's coming in underneath, and like they're going to bring Scott Fardy out from Leinster, which I think is a must do, because like things like that Ned Hannigan play to give away the match in Cardiff were just typifying in the 70th minute. Such a crucial play, and he's there lying on the ball doing God knows what, and you're just like, no Ned, no, don't do it. But it's like Scott Fardy will do a great job, but he's not young either. We've got him because he's retiring from Super Rugby after putting in a hell of a shift of a career, and it's like, who's coming in to back them up? Doesn't look like much.
There really isn't. There was one play in particular last week that really typified where they were at, and it was a line out 5 for Australia in the second half, and they were out of the game, but if they scored it they could have been back into the game, and it was a big moment. And normally if you're a defensive team, if you're England, you're thinking of one of a few things here. You're defending a line out 5. You want to stop them scoring a try. Are we going to compete? Are we going to get up in the line out? Are we going to steal the ball? Are we going to let them take it down and sack them instantly, stop them getting that maul going, grab the ball carrier as soon as he's down, and down he goes before a maul can form? Or are we going to get together as a unit and drive straight through them, push them back instantly? England didn't do any of those. They sat back. They formed a decent defensive shape, got a bit wide so that the Aussies couldn't peel off, and allowed Australia to get a perfect clean ball down, set, great wedge, great shape to the maul. And Australia had more men in it. England had pillar left, pillar right, and an extra man outside, so I think they had about 5 men defending the maul. I think it was 7 in the Aussie maul, and they didn't go anywhere. It was just there. The wedge was there. They tried to peel off to the side, but they were just pushed back, stopped. And then the referee goes, use the ball. They take it quickly, flash it out wide. There's no space because England are numbered up. They flash it instantly straight to the left wing. He gets tackled, fumbles the ball, and England break away. It was Johnny May's nearly try. They kick the ball up the pitch. It just goes into touch, and after it does, Johnny May gathers it and runs home
for the spectator
try. But which at the time was like it was thought to be a try.
Indeed,
they called it back on the TMO. And it was just, for me, it was just an evidentiary,
very Australian play.
It looked like they couldn't compete. It really did. It
on every leg, because it was tight first, perfectly set up, but they're just not strong enough to push them back, it seems.
And England, while good, are not New Zealand or Ireland right now in terms of
you were talking about like how South Africa were bullying them in every contact, and it's like, that's South Africa. This is Australia now, supposedly matching them, going blow for blow in the Rugby Championship, and like they still have a knack about getting up for some of those games and being able to compete. They do still have some of those World Cup players, but it's looking less and less likely every week, and less tenable. Like, I feel like that's what got them to the final the last time, and it was like a great hurrah and a brilliant achievement on Czech's part to get them that far. And they were a bit unlucky to lose. Like New Zealand were just all class in that final and took their chances and took it away from them. But to navigate their way through that tournament was super impressive. The team, as far as it stands in terms of their strongest team, is still the same team, with a few exceptions through necessary retirement because they're that old. But it's like the rest, all their key playmakers and key men were on that team as well. And all that's happened now is that some of the gaps, some of those other jerseys are noticeably lacking.
Are the Australian James Ryans, the Australian Rico Ioannis, the Australian Andre Pollards? Where are they? Are they coming through? And we haven't seen. It's still all about Beale and Folau. And one of the things, like, because obviously we're not as engrossed. We watch a bit of it, but we're not as engrossed in Aussie rugby as Aussies are.
Of course not.
Aussies, in terms of just following how they've been, what their take on what's going on is, I mean, they want the media and the fans and everyone wants Cheika's head. Like, they're totally in disagreement with what we're saying now. And I was just following like one of their farms, one of the big Facebook page over there. I think it might have been Fox Sports, or maybe it was one of the websites over there. A post that got a lot of traction was them talking about Cheika. Should he go? Should he stay? And a litany of comments saying, Cheika's gone. Cheika's, he's an embarrassment. He's got the worst record of any Australian coach. This is a joke. We should get Robbie Deans back. Robbie Deans would save us. But
I don't agree.
And then the top comment was very interesting to me because it was however many hundreds of likes. Everyone in the Aussie fan community seemed to agree with it, and it was just a list of the team. It was like, without Cheika as coach, this is the team we should start in the World Cup, and this will do us well. And just out of curiosity, I'm just going to read it out to you because I just thought it was fascinating. It's Scott Seo at loose head, Fayanga at hooker, the Tongan Thor, Taniela Tupou at tight head, Isaac Rodda, Adam Coleman, Pete Samu at 6, David Pocock obviously captain, Lucan Tui then at 8, 9 Jake Gordon, 10 Quade Cooper, centres Samu Karevi and Jordan Pitaya, and then the back 3 Jack Maddox, Tom Banks and Israel Folau. And like my thing is just I just think the cold hard truth of that is that team is going to get smashed by physically and in terms of their technical skills as well.
But no Beal in there is mental as well. Calling for his head because he was picked a few times at 10 and didn't do a great job because he's not a 10, and it's just trying to.
As much as Quade Cooper has been wronged by Brad Thorne
which
he was 100%. He is not about to pick apart elite level defenses anymore. No, they're not. They're going to get in that team's face and they're going to cause them all kinds of problems. And it would just be, instead of having Beal, Pocock and Folau make some rescuing plays, it would just be Pocock and Folau making some rescuing plays.
If the ball ever saw Folau, I don't know.
If the ball ever saw them, but that team would just get physically dominated by the top sides. Like you think that team is going to beat Wales? It's not. Yeah. Wales are going to tackle the hell out of them and score ruthless tries against them. Yeah. Like there's just
it's the simple truth of it. Like this is how it seems to have been the problem that's been at the forefront of Cech's mind this year, where he's been mixing up the combinations, but the personnel kind of have to be the same. Like he's trying to make
Foley's at 12 instead of a 10. We won't look terrible.
Yeah, but it's like he's still the best option available to him because there's no one else coming through.
And listen, if you disagree with that, you just point to the evidence of what goes on in Super Rugby, which itself has dipped in standard relative to the rest of the world.
Sure.
The Australian teams get beat every week routinely by everybody. Everybody who isn't Australian beats all the Australian teams with those players. And that's the thing, is that these are and it's such a great rugby nation with such a great history, 2 World Cups, some of the best historical players in the world, your Michael Linas. There's just a wonderful history there of great teams, and you just do not have that right now. And it's evident to everyone in the world now, I think, looking in, that there are grassroots issues here.
For sure.
Like there are things not happening that should be happening. There's obviously the loss of eyeballs over there. They don't fill stadiums. There's huge systemic issues. It's like it reminds me of Irish soccer.
It does, and particularly in real life, obviously you haven't been following, but the head coach, Martin O'Neill, was just sacked, and people lambasting him. At the same time, the board of directors has remained the same. There's no actual systemic change. It's just blame the coach, and out goes the coach, in comes a new coach. Players still not getting produced, not going to become a class football team. And same's true.
Ireland poach young players from England, Australia poach them from the islands,
Pacific Islands. Try and fill the midfield with a few classy operators that they managed to steal from overseas.
But there's no grassroots. There's no sense of these, like in New Zealand, which obviously what you have in New Zealand and Ireland is a luxury of these schools and these academies and these producers. But that's the stuff you have to build.
Indeed.
And you have to build the love of the sport. But there's no easy way to do it. It has to be hard. It has to be with graft and the kind of decisions like axing the Western Force for the sake of the Melbourne Rebels.
One team that had a bit of an identity as a club and a bit of a presence in terms of a home presence in the stadium.
A billionaire or millionaire over there who funded the new National Rugby Championship with Fiji and Drua and the Western Force in it this year, which was a great thing. And but it wasn't the union; it was just a fan,
and probably no doubt exasperated fan trying to
positive bourgeois with lots of money to spend who did a good job over there. But what the Australian rugby decided to do is, for the sake of convenience and financial convenience, essentially, we're going to axe the Western Force and just cut off top level pro rugby
in
to
a
the
whole
entire
side of the country,
and the team that gets the highest on average attendances of any side in Super Rugby. I mean, that's gonna kill you. It's just gonna kill you. It's just gonna kill enthusiasm for the sport, and all for the sake of a city in Melbourne that isn't that interested in the sport. So it's just, there are errors being made at a fundamental level, and you might not connect the dots instantly when you watch Australia get stuffed by England. You might just think Czech as a tosser, get him out of there, but they are connected. These results are getting more frequent. They're happening, like the big losses against top teams. They're happening more and more often for Australia, and the idea that you guys have some of those great players like John Eales and Michael Lina and Campese, they just don't have those teams anymore. There's no comparison between this Australia team and the teams that won the World Cup. And the solution to it, which is kind of working, the best players in the team, is just get some of those classy relics back. Let's get Adam Ashley Cooper back.
Yeah, he was brought in. I think that's probably going to be what's going to get them into the World Cup. They're going to
try and do what they did in 2015, which itself was getting Giddo and Ashley Cooper back from exile.
Not Ashley Cooper, it was Drew Mitchell.
That's right.
Overseas as well.
Adam Ashley Cooper was still there in the Taz.
Yeah,
but getting Giddo and Drew Mitchell over just from exile, just to assemble a squad that can do something, and that's what Czech is going to try and go again.
Yeah,
but
they're still like they get like what's depressing is they get the game and they always score tries, and they can make games tight by scoring tries because they're instinctive attacking players a lot of the time coming through, but it's just
some of them.
This is it. It's become less and less frequent and less sustainable, and just the gulf in class has become wider. Because like it's not even that Super Rugby's dipped, because I don't think that's the case. I think that in the wake of the last World Cup, European rugby has bolstered itself a little bit. I think pretty much every team on an international level has improved, with the possible exception, with the definite exception of Australia, and the possible exception of the All Blacks. If you're arguing, is this vintage of All Blacks better than the 2015 vintage of All Blacks?
They haven't improved, but
they're still already at the top level that was blitzkrieging that whole tournament. So it's curious to see how much the other teams have improved, and is it enough to challenge their supremacy?
Certainly, this time round, Australia, I can't, like, going into the last year in terms of things they can do for the World Cup, there are some. They're going to try and assemble that squad again, but I suspect it's not going to work for them.
No, I think this will be the year, and this is why our talk about Fiji as a danger zone for them. Georgia's physicality, I don't rate their pack as it stands. The pack that lined up at the weekend against that Georgian pack was not a good matchup either.
Into it as well, like they have those losses to Scotland that are in their history in the wet, that really just, you know, they just got driven out of the game, and they weren't doing anything, and they were frustrated, and Beale was knocking it on instead of making plays, and the degree to which they just fold and can't cope with it and can't control a game and can't get themselves in the right areas of the field when those things happen makes that Georgia game a very interesting endeavour. And then Fiji obviously is the opposite end of the spectrum, where they'll try and up the tempo. They will play into Australia's hands in that regard, but there's a good argument you can make that personnel wise they might be more likely to score tries.
This is it. Well, we'll wait and see, but it's definitely it's fraught with danger, as you'd say, as far as a World Cup pool. Like they didn't look out as far as the tier 2 sides they're up against. Those are two different styles, both competent teams, and
it'll take a hell of a lot of work from Czech. But I don't mean to be too harsh on Australian rugby fans. I have loved Australian rugby, but I think anger is so merited at this, because it's a tragedy what's happening to them. It's a slow death of Australian rugby that has been building now for 10 years probably.
And they're the only top tier team going against the great, maybe France, but like in terms of
France,
they're still all about there, and they're not suffering.
The thing about France is that the grassroots is
always there. So it's like that's not going anywhere. They're just a bit rudderless at the top sometimes.
They're still watching rugby.
That's the key difference. It's like they're not competing with like just the NRL or
they have the history. It's like it's less about selling rugby to the public and more about assembling a team. And even when France win the World Cup, they still have that interest in rugby going on. But with Australia, that's not the case. But your anger needs to not be directed at the current target man.
It's very much a scapegoat.
It's above his head. The problems are above his head, and they're going to continue with or without Cheika. And I just think that needs to be made, and you need to be as angry as I am about this.
Because I love Aussie rugby, and I love the tour we had over there. They consistently, it's always an interesting game, Ireland v Australia, and it's like always creates a different look to a game. They do manage to find tries against us. We tend to physically dominate them. Always an interesting blend of rugby. So I do believe their players are still quality enough that maybe they can pull it together for one more.
Their first 15.
That's what I mean. That's been what I've been saying for the last few years, is like the first 23 or 15 to 23 of Australian rugby is capable of competing with anyone. But as soon as like Beale has an off day, it goes terribly, and there's no able replacement to mix that up. So it's been an issue that's been growing for ages.
A bit like Fiji, in the sense that there's only so many ways they can win games. They have to do certain things have to happen for them to win matches, and sometimes they do, but often they don't. And for me it just seems like, as much as they can put it up to teams on the day, they did beat the All Blacks the other year, they do still have some very classy players, and we deride them for relying on them, but Folau and Pocock and Beale and Day are exceptional players. Like Folau is always in the conversation for best fullback in the world.
Yeah, because he's just...
And even Genia at his best can do great things. And Hooper, to be fair to him,
has been making play. Even
he's
in
a
the
scapegoat.
Yeah.
He's one of the big scapegoats like Checa. He has to go, get him out.
He's been the only, as far as I can see, he's the only man in the back row trying to make a play.
Yeah.
when Pocock's not there, which he wasn't. It's just
like... Did he stuff a try at the weekend? Was that this weekend against England?
Or was it the weekend? No, he did. Yeah, no, it was he clean through. That was when your man, the Bath winger, Cokanasiga, should have passed, and Hooper, man, he tripped over the speed bump tackle of Caleb Petty, who had a rough time at the office in defence, but he tripped him up, and then Hooper managed to make the play. But so like he's making these big plays, holding it all together.
That's another thing. Like as much as I'm having to go negative again, but I just think there's a romanticization as well of the starting, like guys like Caleb Petty who have been linchpins in the team, who have made good players, and Tamua as well as another one. They're solid players, but you watch them try and make tackles against really top teams, and you watch them fall off, and you watch them fold, and you watch them fail to cover the backfield. Sometimes they're just doing things not quite right. And when you look at where other teams are moving, they barely got by Scotland the last World Cup. They did beat Wales. Like I don't see either of those. Scotland obviously won't be a factor because they're off in the dead draw, but I just don't see it happening for them. It worked well for them last time, and I just think all around the park, even the guys you rely on, the matchups aren't great. And even when Beale is in there at 12, like he can be very, very good, but great centres can break him, and he can put guys down his channel and then get through him, and then just start stuffing them, and then their defence isn't working because he isn't leading it. There are so many ways to beat Australia, and it's only creaking and getting worse and worse and worse over there. We're starting with it so we can move on to more positive
notes. Because like I don't like speaking with in such negative terms about Aussie rugby because traditionally do like it, but like that seems to like by our estimations that's about where they're at, and the blaming of Checa and calling for his head is not going to solve anything. Probably foolish at this point, this far out from a World Cup as well. It's not going to...
Who would you bring in? Who's going to do anything?
And what's going to change? Like maybe the personnel, but as you point out with that team that they've listed, the hypothetical team, that's not right either. Like
if you've got Falau Faianga in there, your line out is going to gone straight away. You know?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
it's just.
It doesn't reek of like it's more fanciful dream thoughts than anything
totally
else.
Dream. It's goggled eyes. I appreciate as a fan how frustrating it can be, but there are times to blame a coach and there are times to not blame a coach.
Yeah, this seems to be one that's more systemic than the coach.
Yeah,
but we'll move on because that's a lot of time spent talking on Oz, I think.
Yeah.
So England, is that where we're at next?
It is
England and where they stand.
Yeah, listen, I was I enjoyed England. I enjoyed England this autumn. I think they've first of all they've got out of their slump, which is fine. I felt like that was going to happen anyway. But they've on the field they have addressed some of the issues that have been bothering the Eddie Jones iteration of England. Yeah, Farrell to 10 is the obvious one.
That's the
and
first
a pair of centres.
We'll still draw exceptional. I still feel it should be Brad Barrett, not Ben Teo. I think there's problems around the Ben Teo.
I think Slade has his issues as well.
Sometimes as well. So I'm not completely convinced on the centres, but what I am convinced of is that Farrell is by far and away their best 10 and should be playing that way. And the two playmakers thing you're trying to implement, like it's traditionally an Aussie thing actually. It's like that's where the pioneering came from. Like it's fun for England, but it's just been curious to watch. Like that South Africa game, which even though they managed to nick it, like it's so strange to look at England playing in Twickenham and being physically dominated, not being able to get any go forward at all, and like trying to get around teams by being quicker. Like that's like it's good, impressive to see them grab some tries, and like obviously striking out wide, and those big pacey wingers, they like playing that way.
They're right up there with the best wingers in the world.
Indeed,
with ball in hand, Johnny May and the boys, they really can grab tries.
Exactly. But it's just like they need a template of a game that's built on dominance, and to do that, they need a bullish operator and a guy who'll take the game to scruff the neck at 10, which is Farrell, and outside him they need some big proper centres who are going to get them make tackles all day and get out of the line, and also just offer themselves and go forward a little bit on the tight and create space for those guys.
Even though I don't think that Ben Teo and Slade are the answers, I like the shape of their attack.
It looks much better than it did.
It just has a much more traditional good aesthetic and closer to a Saracens aesthetic. There were good shapes and good screens, but there were always those hard options, those short line options. And just in general their attack looks much more balanced
better
than it did. Even when they were scoring tries against the Springboks, it was almost Scotland-esque, and it was just, we're going to go outside you, we're going to go outside you, we're going to go outside you, we're not going to do anything else. And that was what it was all about. And you saw the limits of it against France and against Ireland. It just wasn't working.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's they still have some issues for sure. Unresolved, but it's like Farrell just not wearing a 12 jersey is such a vast improvement for them. The presence of Underhill, who I still maintain isn't like, he's not Pocock, but he is in the mould. He's an actual 7, which is something they've been lacking for ages. And like, obviously Eddie Jones was proven to be just wrong in his assertions last year, that is, you don't need a number 7, you just need everyone to be doing the job. But then that has been exposed repeatedly in games since then, and he's changed from it. So I'm welcoming Underhill. His performance against the All Blacks, fantastic. They managed to sucker the All Blacks into an English style game, which they ultimately lost, which I know they're patting themselves on the back for only losing by a point, but I had my own issues with the way the All Blacks were playing there to play the game. My own suspicions that had they upped the pace at all and tried to do something else, they may have found success. So I still think there are kind of some creaks in that England team for sure. They're not where they want to be, but they're certainly not where they were at the start of summer. There's more of an understanding than there had been earlier in the year of the value of getting go forward ball, and that's what the centres is about. Like, as limited as Ben Teo is, he does getting quick go forward ball, so then you can get Farrell onto the front foot instead of having like mad shapes behind the gain line to try and trick teams and get outside them, which again was stuffed. They have learned that value of go forward ball. They have got a 7. Those are 2 positives. Defensively, I don't love what I see from them. No, that's been my main. That's actually like,
it was great against the All Blacks.
It was.
They got out of the line. They stifled teams. They did what England should do.
The world beater that Delindy looked against them was not reassuring from a defensive point of view, because like, yes, they were good carries and he was having a great game with Delindy, but it's like he shouldn't have been getting that kind of purchase, especially when you're picking a guy like Ben Teo. What you're obviously changing things from the Ford Farrell access fundamentally as far as what you're doing with a 12. Yes, but you're looking like, if you're picking him there as the specimen he is, he's not there just to be making the odd hit himself. He has to be leading the defensive line a bit. And what I've seen a bit more often is like, sometimes Farrell's leading it from the inside, sometimes Slade's shooting out, sometimes Teo's kind of there's a bit of just a disconnect in between in those spaces. In that channel, there was a lot of profit gotten by their opponents. Delindy was rampant in that game for the Springboks. He had as good a game as you'd ever see him have. The following week, Ryan Crotty came on and really shook it up for the All Blacks. Was it. Like, initially when it was Sonny Bill before he went off, wasn't it? And it was just like, they were kind of cancelling each other out. 2 players in the same mould. Sonny Bill not really in the best of form anyway. But Crotty just as a different mould. He also wasn't taking it to the line the way Crotty did. Crotty just got on the ball. He took it off Aaron Smith a few times. He was just looking to generate that go forward, and he did. He was a constant source of go forward and line breaks for them, and probably won them the game on balance. Then the following week, the Japanese centre had a good time, bagged himself a try, got loads of space, loads of running meters with ball in hand in that channel. So it's definitely a point of concern. It's a huge issue. Now Bernard Foley did nothing, but he's not at 12. No, he isn't. He was at 12. What? That's definitely an issue, because it's something that, like, I'm thinking, if you're picking Ben Teo anyway, you're sacrificing a lot as far as you've already, like, you had Farrell there before, which is like having the ultimate playmaker there. I'm not suggesting that you need that necessarily for a 12. No. Like, Crotty's a great example of a guy who's playing 12 at an elite level, and not being that kind of big physical specimen who's there to be an immovable lump in the midfield. But if you're picking that kind of player and you're sacrificing some of that playmaking thing, which, like, he's improved, Ben Teo. He is actually not dying with the ball anywhere near as often as he was. That's true. He's passing a few times, but he's not throwing really good crisp passes that are getting people to the outside. He's just occasionally popping it off to his right or his left, and you're sacrificing a lot in just doing that. And if he's not going, like, you need to deliver some solidity in that midfield line, which is why, for me, still Brad Barrett gets my nod. Those personnel issues are I think, because Alex Good as well at fullback is another. Like, I think they are going to come back and haunt them, and as much as it's good to see them starting to do the right things, they're like, as Underhill is a natural 7, but he's not one of the best natural 7s in the world. No. And maybe he could become that, but I don't think in a year he could become that. Yeah, possibly not. I think
what you're probably going to see, like, they're a very good team, don't get me wrong, they're a very good team. Farrell's one of the best 10s, Itoje is one of the best second rows. They have fantastic players. Jamie George is an absolute unit of a thing. Like, they have great second rows. They're going to be like Manu Tuilagi, you would expect to come back in and make a big impact, hopefully, if he's fit. Wingers are obviously lethal and they score tries, but there are a couple of holes, and I think as Brad Barton and Alex Good would shore up a lot of them. Backfield issues, to add defensive issues, I think those two guys would be huge to add. But ultimately, I just see in a big game, whoever they're up against, if it comes to World Cup semi-final time or possibly even quarter-final time, a big team is probably just going to get the better of those exchanges against them. There are just one too many holes in their game at the moment, and they just, as soon as they win a match, they talk it up and they start living large,
or almost win a match, as was the talk as well.
Indeed.
I don't know
after that performance against the All Blacks, they were geed up and happy out and loving life, but
what I saw was a team that didn't score for 60 minutes.
They should be more humble, because they're still just on paper not where Ireland and Wales are, and not where the All Blacks and South Africa are, and probably fifth is probably about where they belong.
I think they're ahead of where France are, fundamentally,
and Scotland probably
and
as well.
Probably Scotland as well. They have the hoodoo over Scotland anyway, in terms of historical.
Maybe it's broken.
In Murrayfield it is. In Twickenham it's very, very not. But at World Cup time, none of that matters, so it's interesting.
Houses in Tokyo.
How's the Tokyo factor for the boys, for Eddie Jones's men? Well, not great if they keep talking smack about a Japan team that then come out and make mugs of them in the first half.
Kyle Sinclair again, tormenting the Aussie guys, laughing in their faces after things. He did, and he scrummed well, but that boy is going to come back to haunt you, because he's so arrogant, and he's so, for like, a couple of minutes after he started taunting the Wallabies with the snitches stuff and whatever you make of that, but a couple of minutes after that happened, he had another gratacious drop, like the drop
which
is
one per game, and two of those games were off the bench, where he's the impact guy off the bench, and it's
so I just think Kyle Sinclair is typifies what England are, in the sense that he's very good, he's very physical, he can be excellent, but his arrogance could cost him. Genuinely, just because you get too geed up, you get too in people's faces, you start talking too much smack, and then you make a mistake. And that has been Eddie Jones. For all of that talk, you end up feeling infinitely more foolish. You're ill-equipped to cope with a loss when it comes your way, because of your talk.
It just kind of tees things up the wrong way, and it kind of misses there's a lack of self-examination on it, because that's like three performances in a row. The third one was not off the bench. He dropped the ball in all three of them, and yet the one in the middle, he was talking smack about the opposition and about what the All Blacks might do, all this kind of nonsense. And it's like, do you even remember that you came off and dropped that ball last week? Are you not furious about that aspect of your performance, and you're going to immediately try and get rid of that, and for that to keep recurring week out?
I think they are going to do well next year. I think they're probably going to get to a World Cup semi-final, but then I think they're going to get beat, and
it's still a good return. It's better than we can ever boast.
It's a good return, but this is a country that wants to be winning the World Cup, and I just think they're not quite there. For a whole bunch of reasons, but mostly they're just too many holes.
A little bit. But definitely an improvement to have Farrell back at 10, because that was one issue that was driving us mad. It was.
It's definitely a positive November for them.
Yeah, because you're looking at what Sarries do. Sarries are the shining light in an English Premiership that is floundering, and like, if you watch just the Premiership, you're convinced that Exeter are nearly a world-class team, but then you watch what happens when they go to Europe, and you're like, oh, actually, they're just competent on all the basics, and actually are rather unspectacular when it comes to tight games to make something happen for themselves. And it's only Sarries who are producing across that level, like that
genuine top side. And God, it would matter if Billy Vunipola got back for them, because he's a key man. Brad Shields is no Billy Vunipola.
No, he's not. No. He did have a good game getting murdering those Aussies. Sure, he may not be an English forward, but he's a Kiwi forward, and he knows how to murder some Aussies. I did love his line out. Shout out for that. Like, Techers is something I love to see, but the releasing of the line out behind the head, that was a good moment. Turning the other way and just flicking it up. That was blind. That's, like to see a bit of that. So good on Brad Shields for that one.
Got a reaction in the crowd. That one did.
Ooh. But I suppose we'll move on to
South Africa, and we could just touch on the Springboks. We talked so much about them. They, as we say, positive year for them. Defensively, very improved. Couple of things that the exit, as we touched on with the box kicks and the bomb kicks as well, same issue. It's like it feels like you're just copying Ireland.
Well, certainly that's maybe our green goggles, but like they're not quite getting it right.
More illustrative of that, no, just in terms of style. It's not necessarily because Ireland does it; it's almost because everybody does it. It's like we have the ball, it's slow ball, it's in our half. We can't really bust out of it. It's too risky. We might drop it
or give away a
penalty. Like we just have to box kick it.
Yeah.
And the contestable box kick is a great play when you have wingers that do that. But it's not playing to your strengths. Faf de Klerk isn't a box kicking scrum half.
And getting him in there to do that is just foolish.
And Nkosi and Tianti aren't receiving wingers.
No.
They have other strengths. So you have to do other things. You can roam around with Faf. You can move it to one side of the pitch. You can set up a play wherein you show the back three that you're going to do something and then do something else just to get the ball in behind them.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of different trickery that all the coaches look at, and it's just too often you're seeing them just do the stock exit.
Yeah, and it doesn't quite work for them.
Yeah,
a lot of the time
it doesn't work for them ever. You rarely see them win a contestable kick. The Safas, when it's if it's kicked to them, Villy Leroux will have a take, but he gets beaten many times as well. It's
he's not imperious.
It's not where their strength is. Those guys are quick. They like space. Faf de Klerk likes dictating with ball in hand, and he's tigerish in defence as well. But they're not. They actually, as much as they like to be, they're not that bomb kicking.
No, they're on a general kind of kicking thing. Their kicks tend to be lower trajectory than all that. Like their place kicks. Their place. No, I know he does. Yeah. But I'm just thinking, like, in terms of their attacking kick shape, it shouldn't be that all exclusively that. Like a lot of times, if they spin it out wide, they like their little chips through to try and for their wingers to gather, chase and gather. They can play that game,
should do more of that,
but they can't be like they're just not built the same way for receiving or
especially when you're up against someone like Israel Folau or even Rob Kearney or just someone who's really really good at doing that.
Indeed.
And Liam Williams was proof of that at the weekend.
Indeed,
you kick it down his throat with your guy speculatively chasing.
No, he loves that. Well, Liam Williams loves that game. Like the bomb game. He what is he called himself? The bomb diffuser, was it? He gave himself that nickname in the Welsh context. I think that either he did it or he was dubbed it. But like he plays that game all the time, and it's something that appears in the Six Nations all the time. So for a South African team to come to Cardiff with that as a game plan in mind and with that those personnel selected, a little bit ill advised. So there's definitely that issue that needs tightening up. There are, like it's just great to see some of the glaring issues on a personnel front that were there last year, where we were like really really struggling to find any positives even in the way they were playing, and in the wake of them coming to Dublin and shipping a load of points, it was all doom and gloom. So this year has been an undeniable positive, and they remain the ever dangerous. It's like this is where as Irish, or even if you're from Wales as well, you're not dealing with a playing population of the same scale. So it's hard to even imagine it. Like, you just don't have to worry about academy systems really, because so many people are playing rugby that there are invariably a lot of classy players, and it's more about wrangling them together. It's a completely different way of doing it, and it just means they're always dangerous, and you can't write them off. If you're thinking the Springboks are rubbish now, you're just wrong. There's a lot of classy players.
And what we can say now, a year out from the World Cup, that we couldn't say a year ago, 2 years out from the World Cup, is that right now the Springboks have a 15 who, with another year's experience behind them and
are
coaching,
contenders.
Are absolutely contenders for the World Cup. They have to fix a few things, game management. They're going to have to maybe change things up with their defence, just being it will get figured out. But it's top inches stuff now. It's working on. You have your team, and now you're just working on certain skills and what guys are going to do. There's a lot of positives there, and you also have a lot of depth. You do have other guys to come back. Like, we don't know where Mapu is going to fit in when he comes back with all of these wingers, and now Cheslin putting his hand up big time. And the same with Nathaniel Am. There is an argument that their centres aren't doing enough for them in attack, and maybe
Am. I like the look of Am in that kind of mix. So you like Serfontaine as well. Serfontaine could come back in. There are options, because there are so many players, because they export enough to bolster so many divisions of European rugby. Like loads of teams have a great SAFA contingent, including many Irish teams. Oops. Sorry about that, but including many Irish teams have a healthy proportion of South African representation, because they just produce a myriad of players.
It's building much nicer for them. And you have to give your ultimate end for this year for the Springboks has to be like a gold star. Well done, Razzie. Well worthy of your Coach of the Year nomination, and next year is going to be massive. They're right back in the mix,
exactly,
which is great.
Yeah, they are in a tough pool and a tough side of the draw, and they're in our way, and I suppose is a good way to segue into us as any. Ireland obviously had a year of years. Like 2018 will go down as the best Irish rugby season ever. Yeah, and there's no argument. It is like it has been. On paper, like we never won a tour in the Southern Hemisphere, I believe. Before
we hadn't
won a tour in the Southern Hemisphere. Did that against Australia. Admittedly, that achievement is not the same as it would have been a few years ago, based on what we've said before. So that there needs to be some stock taken of that. Still think there were a few flaws. We were not as clinical as we ought to have been. We were exposed a little bit by Pocock for just the amount of multi-phase we go through. It takes us too long to score a try. Elite poachers are going to do for us in that multi-phase game. That's a problem. So like Australia kept in touch with us, but they still managed to get the win, brought Sexton in and managed to, like the second test was a tour de force of just exerting that dominance and building that pressure game, and it's off the back of a Six Nations that was all about that, and it could have been so different if not for a drop goal in Paris that changed the face of that season, because otherwise the grandstand's gone. We're still holding the ball too long without scoring tries.
Well, listen, it's an example of perhaps why they're not bulletproof for sure. They have improved since then. I still think that the year would have gone well even if that hadn't gone right. Yeah, but it was as a moment illustrative of everything that Ireland are doing right, in the sense that they stay calm. They are different from Ireland teams of old. They don't bottle it. No. And Sexton, in Sexton they have a quarterback and a general who can guide them to incredible feats, and that was what that was all about. But also just a disciplined machine of a unit that aren't going to make mistakes.
The whole string of phases, like you'll never see more of a team drop goal than that, where it goes from 22 restart to 5 minutes later taking a punt on a drop goal with every player having touched it.
And it wasn't necessarily exceptional or pretty. In fact, at times they just couldn't break France down, and that's why it took so many phases. But it was controlled, it was measured, it was dictated by Sexton, and it was nobody made a mistake, and that was the key thing.
And that's very often that like error or risk aversion by cutting down the errors, being very disciplined. These are hallmarks of this side. Being very very physical. Tight five is exceptional. Probably the best tight five in world rugby at the moment, as it stands off the back of this year. But that's obviously up for debate come the World Cup. Like we'll see how we hold up. But of this season, it was a forward-oriented, amazing job of suffocating teams through building pressure and then executing well enough to get the scores to win these games. We're still, like, you can be critical, we're not the most flowy team. We certainly don't capitalise as often as like a team like Wales. Actually, the performance against Wales was an interesting one as well, whereby like we exerted all of that dominance, but it very nearly didn't matter because Wales could just find tries where we really were lacking for that ability. It took us 10 minutes to find a try. It took them 10 seconds sometimes.
Yes,
totally. So like there's definitely scope for improvement on that front. Yeah. But like it's impressive to see how far the team's come. Like their fitness levels are up there on par with everyone in the world now, which is something like a few years ago, looking at through the prism of the All Blacks games we've played of note over the last few years. It's interesting to see where the discipline of the side has gone and where the fitness of the side has gone, and also just the belief that's come from obviously this year winning everything. Like Johnny Sexton, World Player of the Year, but it was nearly undeniable because between Leinster winning the double and Ireland literally going unbeaten, and apart from the one game he didn't start, it's like only beaten by Toulouse when he started at 10 since I think pre-Lions tour. That's a mental stat, really
incredible stat,
but it's symptomatic of how important he is.
And no, there's no question for right now where Ireland are. They're team of the year, they are coach of the year, they are player of the year. Everything is looking roses for them. You're talking about top 2 inches stuff. They have some of the best depth in the world. They have definitely the best pack, an amazing scrum, an endless list of stars who they can go to in the pack. Just an incredible depth there. The line out, obviously, they still need to work on.
It's a key strength in terms of with the first team there, but it's a key kind of glaring shift in terms of that depth. There's a standard dip as soon as a few key men are gone.
And as you say, just sharpening a little bit what they're doing in attack and generating the chaos factor in. Because as much as the depth is there are a couple of key men who they lose. One of whom is Rob Kearney, that will shake up the way they play. Now, Jordan Larmour is not somebody who you would worry about in the sense that him not being an elite player, but he's just if Jordan Larmour plays at 15, Ireland have to do things a bit differently.
Yeah.
They have to defend a bit differently. They have to attack a bit differently. They have to use Larmour's strengths instead of using Carney's strengths.
Yeah.
And there's no sense at all in making Larmour, do what Rob does. No, Rob's gone. He's not at 15. We have Larmour at 15. What does that mean for the team? Well, we'll try and find space for him. We'll try and use his ability off chaos ball. We'll run it a bit more.
But
we'll probably drop another man back to the backfield.
It fundamentally changes our defensive structure, which is what one of the luxuries Ireland have enjoyed this year, purely through Carney's amazing performances. That unlike any other team in World Rugby, they can afford to have 14 men in the line. Yeah. And they can, because there's only one man managing to cover all the space in the backfield, which is something that, I don't know, you can't coach. He's obviously always had an instinct for the high ball anyway, and he's been stellar at that, but after the years of experience, he just seems to have a read on it that is... Like the great goalkeepers is the analogy. I see him as that guy who's so assured. So as soon as he goes down, it fundamentally changes things, so much so that it's still an unanswered question. Obviously, you can't have Larmour trying to do the same thing. He's just going to get found out
for sure.
So you're going to have to shake things up, and that's a challenge on Andy Farrell when it comes to it. If it comes to it, that the defensive system has to kind of rejig things, and it's a big day for Gary Ringrose, who has to pick up a lot of that flack in the wide channel anyway. Yeah. So they're obviously nowhere near invincible, and in fact I think one of the more attritional, but also as far as discipline is concerned, the best team in World Rugby. As far as just every player playing on message, even to the extent like we were bemoaning some of the sites. It was actually a couple of seasons ago, but the comparison of Robbie Henshaw in an Ireland jersey versus a Leinster jersey in terms of what he's doing and contributing to the team. There's a lot more heads on play in Leinster.
Better in that regard.
They have definitely improved in that regard. They all know their roles so well that they're now getting the freedom to play within them.
Yeah, because Stockdale gets the ball in space. That's all pre-planned. But then when he has it in space, he is licensed to get a bit creative and think hang on, what's the shape of this? There's Ben Smith running up towards Murray Best for whatever reason. I might just chip it in behind him and score a try.
Indeed,
and that kind of thing is you'd need to see more of it, and you'd also like to see them just be able to play and win in a few different ways. Yeah. Because even that game at the weekend against the US was very attritional.
It was Irish.
There was no moment when they cut loose. It was just the tries were almost equally sequented from one another.
Yeah,
it was
just kind of gradually applied the pressure and it accumulated the points.
No different from how we do it to anyone else. It's just that the USA were just that step down.
Indeed, yeah. They were shocked, I think, by the end. Some of the subs who came on really did for them physically, because they were very up for the physical stakes and the physical battle. And in the first half, they won a few contacts because they are big men, but the fitness, as soon as we managed to up the pace of the game even a little and still maintain that physicality in it, and some of the footwork of the forwards, at the loose forwards at the line, there was a moment where Tyburn just stepped to the outside and one of the US players just fell on the ground. So you're seeing a little gulf in class there. It's hard to get a read on what thing. But it was just good to see the depth.
It was also good to see the US do well, but that's another thing. Just before we wrap up, we had loads that we were going to get to, but just for time wise, and it's just not going to shape out.
As is ever the case, we've run a little long.
For sure we have. I just wanted to mention that Joe Schmidt is is going to leave the Ireland job, as we all know now. He announced it. It was a sort of not well kept secret, rather an open secret.
It was pretty much an open secret.
That he was
very well managed. It was another example of glowing professionalism from the RFU, where quash any media speculation before it even happens.
Yes,
kind of take the control of the situation into your own hands and never relinquish it.
And he's going to step down after the World Cup. It's going to be a big turning point for a lot of nations, but obviously now Ireland as well. Says he's quitting coaching. Remains to be seen if that's true.
But it's a good thing to say, even in terms of he's not planning for things after it. He's going to the World Cup with Ireland, and then he's done coaching. As far as this part of his life is concerned, that's the truth.
Yes,
because he's bringing this team to the World Cup.
That's his thing.
And then what happens there, that'll dictate things, and then he'll have a look at it after. Yeah. He deserves a holiday anyway after it. For God's sake, he's been working non-stop and done a great job.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me though is that Andy Farrell has been announced as the head coach.
Yeah,
and that just it's just one or two. I don't want to be harsh on him because he's definitely, without question, one of the best defensive coaches in the world.
Yeah, his record against the All Blacks speaks to that.
He has an impact on players. He gets them energized.
Gets them excited by defending. Yes. Which is some notable difference. There were a lot of in periods in this Irish team's evolution over the last decade. There have been points where we've been adopting that reverse drift thing, which always seemed counterintuitive to our boys. Same way with South Africa. Like we're a team that loves the physical exchanges in rugby, and like as much as we're Leinster men, we love the kind of wide kind of thing. We have to give due diligence to the fact that the country's not Leinster. There's Munster there as well, and like the physical exchanges in rugby are what gets us geared up and excited. And so like defending that way, although it was wise enough, just the sacrifice of yards and the sacrifice of hits a lot of the time made no sense. Where what Andy Farrell has brought in is a refocus on that, try and get into the line, get off the line, and smash folks, and bring them to the Hurt Arena, as he said, the Painery. I can't remember what he said.
I don't know what he says,
but like he gets players excited, enthused about getting off the line and making those plays.
They're licensed to make plays on defense a lot as well, and they do, and it's definitely been great, and you just can't get enough praise for that.
Even though sometimes it breaks, it can still be broken by excellent skills and a good try. So can all defensive systems, but it's far more in keeping with an Irish mentality to get out of the line and hit someone rather than stand and wait for them to make plays. And like you want to make plays, not the opposition. You're not scrambling to control them all the time.
There's no question. He's a phenomenal defense coach, and he's done a phenomenal job. But I don't like to call us head coach, and it's just there's a track record with him. Like he got a lot of stick after the World Cup. Now a lot of that was sensationalist. The media were just looking for a scapegoat.
It's hard to get a read on anything.
I think it was
sports.
Joe Marler, if I remember, who threw him under the bus during the World Cup. Did like an interview and threw him under the bus. But if what has been accepted is to be believed, is that he undermined Lancaster. He was the driving force behind drafting Burgess,
which was a huge mistake.
Yeah, just his overall vision of the game. Like he's quite an alpha personality, and you would hope that he's learned from it and that he's working with Joe. But I think that working with Joe is so perfect for him, because Joe is like a very different kind of alpha, in the sense that he is just the boss man. He oozes rugby knowledge, and he oozes respectability. You can't but respect him. And he's like the perfect guy, very smart, a definite leader, thinks on a whole other level about the sport, and can be cutting with his remarks as well. Super intelligent. He's the perfect guy to point Farrell in the right direction, to say, you take the direct, you're on my leash, you're doing my thing. And I just don't know if the Farrell personality, the take it to the hurt zone, is going to be as effective when he's holding the leash. He's not on it. He's the guy with the reins. I just think, especially with the history, because you're going to have to replace Joe with a backs coach, and the natural person to bring in is Lancaster. But there's all kinds of demons those two have. I mean, Lancaster still hasn't been back to Twickenham since it happened. Like, there's huge personal demons for those guys working together. They didn't end, I don't think, on great terms. So there's that element as well. With him as a head coach. And I just think, like, you might have thought they were stretched for options, but I think Mark McCall from Saracens, who is, we love Saracens, we can't stop talking about them. He's done a great job and just brought them non-stop success with a great new innovative brand of rugby, and he's an Irish guy, and he's been their head coach, and I just thought he would have been a really interesting pick to draft in a head coach. But I guess
they're pointing from within, which is like what Joe Schmidt has brought, as any Kiwi coach will, because it's the Kiwi system, is like they're appointing things from within. So it's like, I don't fully disagree with the call. I also just don't know. I'm not in for the wild speculation. Maybe he already knows the system.
It's just a feeling. It's just it's based on his history. Like, there was a massive blunder, and the particular thing of challenging Lancaster and bringing in Burgess, and sort of as the rugby league guy, really spearheading that idea, which was a terrible idea.
I know.
I'm not
disputing that, but you could wonder. Wonder is a fine thing, but I'm hesitant to write it off before it's happened.
I agree. And listen, this is something that will be parked now until 11 months time.
Yeah, we have been preparing a whole thing before it was announced, because we didn't expect that they would name his successor straight away. So we were already prepping who it might be, who are all the options, and obviously Mark McCall was our favourite and pick among them
for sure.
But what do we know? It's not up to us, and it's already decisions made. So that's there's no sense in talking about it anymore. That's going to be the crack. But in the context of this podcast, as we were saying, we're all geared about this World Cup, and for this World Cup, Joe Schmidt's still the coach, and it's still Joe Schmidt's Ireland, Schmidt ball, if you like, and we'll see how well it goes.
What a hero of Irish rugby! The way he
amazing. He's touched. He's managed to bring it to a whole other level. in across the board, he's managed to refine something that was always there. There was a little nugget of gold that just needed to be polished and treated, but it was like very loose and very rugged. Obviously, Cheika doesn't get enough credit even on these shores for just how much he cleaned house at Leinster and solved a lot of those issues that were glaring. Very flaky play, some beautiful rugby, but also some terrible, turgid stuff in the past. And like what Schmidt managed to take from that team that were focused and well drilled. They were not making the same stupid errors that played themselves out against before. They had decent scrum, decent line out, which was all decent tight five, which was all Cheika's doing. What he then managed to do for them was take them to a new level of accurate, focusing on detail rather than being that loose team.
As much as
I hope that will have rubbed off and will touch the system from top to bottom and will remain. But we don't know.
As much as he really, really, really knows his rugby and he has some great plays in his playbook and understands what he wants Ireland to do and points them in the right direction, all those stuff is really valuable. I think what we're going to miss most from him is just his one-on-one player management, his ability to get the best out of everybody who he coaches, everybody who he touches. He improves, and it's just that skill, that extreme skill of teaching and coaching that is just you just can't argue with it. It's phenomenal. And listen, what a guy. We'll miss him when he's gone.
Joe.
And
in Joe we trust for 1 year more. Let's bring home the World Cup. Come on,
exactly
right. It'll be amazing.
Exactly right.
And it's going to be bloody tough, but no better man to do it.
All right. Well, listen, we're going to wrap up the show. It's been been a long one, but
it has been a long one.
We didn't get to everything. We wanted to talk about all the teams, and we may still.
We may have to. We may make that include that maybe in next week's podcast. Perhaps exactly a little thing at the top. But like from next week on, we're going to be switching focus again because European rugby is going to be returning, and obviously we have a few things involved in that. We have stock in that, so it'll be very interesting. But it's a new time of year, and what a great autumn it was. Really, there were some great games. We thoroughly enjoyed them. Fiji, France is going to be a highlight for you. I won't shy away from watching those highlights in times to come.
For sure.
But and from Ireland and Wales going unbeaten, I think that's my big main take in the context of coming up to the Six Nations next year. Those two teams going head to head, because that is such a real rivalry.
Both of them have to go to Murrayfield before they meet each other.
I know, which is a spanner in the works. It's all the little Celtic stuff going on, which we're all
The Scots won't like being written off. They can still do magic. It's a shame we didn't get to talk about them today, but
indeed,
we will get there. To all you impatient Kiwi, Welsh, Scottish, Argentinian, French fans who didn't get to hear all the stuff that we might think, stay tuned. We'll be on it. Long one though.
Long one indeed.
See you folks.
Ciao.
Bye. Alright, you're up. Here we go.
You're up with the Leinster ball this time.
It's a lighter ball. Okay, so it just needs a little flicky motion right into the lens.
No, not the lens.
Not the lens, but the screen.
And here we go. Overthrow.
Well,
Malcolm Marks here.
Not as easy as it looks.
I know, right?
Criticizing the big man. He's going 15 meters. We're going a meter. Yeah.